Qantas is preparing an A350 for Sydney to London with 137 seats deliberately missing. Not because demand is weak, because more passengers could erase the weight margin needed to reach London. But removing them creates a brutal second problem. Who pays for nearly 22 hours of flying? That is Project Sunrise. Every extra passenger threatens the range. Every empty seat threatens the profit.
Now, a major Qantas test flight has touched down in Toulouse in France after 24 hours and 24 minutes in the sky. It captured the world's attention after taking off from Melbourne Airport. More than 3.5 million people tracking its journey online.
Qantas has already ordered 12 modified A350s. If this calculation is wrong, the aircraft could work perfectly while the route fails, and the number that decides it will not be found in the fuel tank. On July 24th, 2026, the test of the Airbus A350 reached Melbourne after almost 19 hours from Toulouse. It carried 5 tons of test equipment and an additional 20,000-liter fuel tank. The hardware is becoming real, but the most important number is still blank. The price 238 passengers will pay. The first clue is not inside the fuel tank, it's inside the cabin. The 238-seat layout is not simply spacious, it's the business model. Qantas plans 6 first-class suites, 52 business suites, 40 premium economy seats and 140 economy seats. The economy total includes 42 economy plus seats. That puts 98 seats, more than 41% of the aircraft, in the first, business or premium economy. There's no single universal Airbus A350 configuration, but against Airbus' typical 375-seat benchmark, Qantas is giving up 137 possible passengers. Why? Because passengers are payload. So are their bags, seats, meals, water, and everything required to serve them. But here's the trap. On an ordinary route, another passenger usually means more revenue. On a Project Sunrise, another passenger also consumes weight margin needed for the fuel. Removing seats eliminates thousands of kilograms of people, baggage, and cabin equipment. Empty space is not wasted space, it's a payload margin. And now the problem reverses. The aircraft, crews, and fuel still have to be paid for. So everything remaining seat must work harder financially. But weight is not what passengers are buying. They are buying a stop that disappears. In 1947, Sydney to London took 4 days and 7 stops. Today, the journey normally requires 1. Project Sunrise removed the final stop. And that stop, not the aircraft, is what Qantas plans to sell back to the passengers. And removing that stop creates a strange trait. Qantas says the non-stop journey could save travelers as much as 4 hours. Those 4 hours are the product. For a business passenger, that could mean recovering part of a working day. For a family, it removes another boarding process, another airport wait, and the risk of a broken connection. But the bargain is uncomfortable. The total journey becomes shorter by making the flight itself much longer. And first for business, Qantas can sell a bed, privacy, and direct aisle access. Premium economy sell more personal space. Economy is the difficult cabin. Most economy seats offer a 33-inch pitch. 42 economy plus seats add 1 inch, along with priority boarding and overhead bin access. There is also a well-being zone where passengers can stand, stretch, and hydrate. But none of that changes the central passenger decision. Would you spend close to an entire day inside one aircraft, possibly at a higher fare, or to arrive 4 hours sooner? Qantas believe enough people will say yes. But before price can decide the route, Airbus make the distance possible. Those 4 saved hours have to be purchased with the fuel, and fuel creates a trap. The further an aircraft flies, the more fuel it needs, but fuel has weight. A heavier aircraft burns additional fuel simply carrying the fuel required later. Range becomes progressively more expensive. For Project Sunrise, Airbus integrated a rear center tank holding another 20,000 liters, roughly 16 tons of fuel when full. It's also increased the aircraft maximum takeoff weight and redesigned fuel management. Together, those changes add approximately 1,000 nautical miles of range. That final 1,000 miles is the difference between an impressive Airbus A350 and an aircraft capable of attempting Sydney to London with a commercial payload, weather margin, and diversion fuel. But here's the part that most people miss. The extra tank solves range by making the aircraft heavier. Passengers make it heavier again, so the missing seats are not simply a luxury decision. They are part of the range equation. People, fuel, and distance are fighting for the same aircraft, and Airbus now has to prove that equation works outside a computer. The tank exists. That doesn't mean the regulator trusts it. The 350 that reached Melbourne is a test aircraft parked with around 5 tons of instrument instead of passengers' cabin. Sensors are measuring how the new tank, higher takeoff weight, and fuel transfer system behave across an ultra-long mission. After the Melbourne flight, the aircraft returned to France for further certification work. It will eventually be converted for an airline service. But it's not Vega, the first completed passenger aircraft Qantas expect to receive. Vega is scheduled for delivery in April 2027, and Qantas planned to start selling tickets 2 months earlier. Think about that. Customers may be asked to buy the Promise before Qantas receive its completed Sunrise cabin. But even Airbus certifies every modification. The hardest component remain outside of the aircraft, the human body. The hardest component in Project Sunrise is not made by Airbus. It's the human body. An aircraft can be certified for a 22-hour mission. A human body cannot be redesigned as easily. For passengers, fatigue means discomfort and jet lag. For pilots, preparing to land after crossing as many as 10 time zones, fatigue becomes an operational risk. That is why Qantas tested the people before ordering the aircraft. In 2019, 3 Boeing 787 delivery flights became flying laboratories. Passengers wore activity monitors recording sleep, movement, and light exposure. Pilots used EEG equipment so researchers could examine alertness and brain activity. Volunteers followed time schedule for light meals, sleep, and movement, then repeated reaction tests. Initial findings suggested less severe jet lag, better in-flight sleep, and improved cognitive performance after arrival. The research helped shape the A350 lighting, meal timing, movement periods, and well-being zone. But making one extreme flight tolerable proves almost nothing about a daily airline service. The passenger has to choose it again, and the pilots have to operate it safely every day. Qantas nearly never reached this point. Qantas first issued the Project Sunrise challenge in 2017. Airbus proposed a modified 350-1000. Boeing proposed 777-8. Qantas selected Airbus as its preferred supplier in December 2019, citing the complete package, efficiency, operating cost, commercial terms, and passenger experience. Boeing delayed 777X program, added uncertainty, but there was no single technical knockout. Even after selecting Airbus, Qantas did not place an order. It still needed a new long-haul pilot agreement. Pilot approved it in March 2020. Then international aviation collapsed. Border closed, Qantas grounded most of its long-haul network, and Project Sunrise was paused. The original 2023 launch disappeared. In May 2022, Qantas finally ordered 12 Airbus A350-1000 for the project. Now the cabin is defined, the tank exists, the test program is flying. Daily Sydney to London service is planned for October 2027, subject to certification and regulatory approval. After a decade of planning, Project Sunrise is close enough to touch, which makes the remaining risk more serious, not less. Now comes the weakness most people will miss. The aircraft doesn't have to fail. The tank can work. The route can be certified. Every seat can be even occupied, and Qantas could still have a problem. Because a full aircraft is not automatically a profitable aircraft. The real test is not whether Qantas can fill 238 seats. It's whether it can fill the right 238 seats at the right price. This changed how you should read the entire seat map. Project Sunrise is designed around yield, not volume. 6 first suites and 52 business suites occupy space that could hold many more economy passengers. That only works if enough travelers repeatedly buy the expensive seats. Discounting can fill an aircraft. But heavy discounting can also destroy the revenue advantage the 238-seat cabin was designed to create. But nominally is dangerous. The first Sydney to London flight may attract aviation enthusiasts, media attention, and travelers who want to experience the record. The business case depends on the 1000th flight. It depends on the companies repeatedly paying to save executive time. It depends on the premium leisure passengers repeatedly buying space and privacy. It also depends on economy passengers repeatedly choosing one extreme flight over a journey broken by stop. Qantas plan to operate Sydney to London daily. Sydney to New York is expected to follow. That means this cannot survive as an occasional prestige route. It needs a repeatable market. The most dangerous outcome is not an empty aircraft. It's a full aircraft carrying the wrong revenue. Qantas has evidence passengers may pay, but it does not have the proof. The airlines say its existing non-stop long-haul routes generate roughly 20% more unit revenue than comparable one-stop service. That does not mean every Sunrise ticket will cost exactly 20% more. It means the airline has previously earned more revenue from each unit of capacity when it removes a stop. But Project Sunrise pushes that behavior further than any existing Qantas route. The fares have not been published. Tickets are scheduled to go on sale in February 2027. Until then, the number controlling all 12 aircraft is still blank. Once fares appear, the gamble leaves the engineering lab and enters the market. From there, Project Sunrise has two futures. If it works, Qantas turn geography into premium product, daily Sydney to London service. New York later, and a commercial niche beyond standard A350-1000 range. Other airlines would still need the right geography, premium demand and economics, but the limits of non-stop travel would move. But if it fails, the lesson will be just as important. It would show the technical range does not automatically create a sustainable route. Weak demand could force Qantas to reconsider pricing, frequency, or aircraft deployment. That is analysis, not an announced plan. There are still near-term risks as well. Airbus must complete certification, Qantas must operate an extreme daily mission reliably, and passengers must accept the fare after the novelty fades. The risk is not an immediate disaster. It's a perfectly capable aircraft attached to a business model that may not scale. Project Sunrise is now close enough that the argument can no longer be settled by range charts. Passengers will settle with booking. So place yourself inside the final calculation. Would you pay more to remain in one aircraft for almost an entire day if it returned 4 hours of your life on the ground? And that answer lies the future of Project Sunrise. Project Sunrise is not really a bet on aircraft. It's a bet what passengers believe their time is worth. Airbus can calculate the fuel. Engineers can test the weight. Regulators can certify the tank, but no equation can guarantee that the passengers will value full saved hours enough to support this route. That's why 238 is more than a cabin number. It is the narrow point where the range, payload, human endurance, and revenue collide. When tickets appear, every booking becomes a vote. If Qantas keeps filling the right 238 seats after inevitably disappears, Project Sunrise could open new frontier and non-stop aviation. If it cannot, the aircraft may still become an engineering triumph, with no sustainable reason to fly this route. Every extra passenger threatens the range. Every empty seat threatens the profit. Project Sunrise survives only at a point where those two dangers meet.